Deep in the incense-heavy air of the Ashtapad temple, Queen Mandodari spins in a state of absolute devotional trance. Beside her, providing the sacred rhythm for her offering, her husband plays the veena. The music is soaring. The worship is perfect. And then, right in the middle of the performance, a string on the instrument violently snaps. Rather than let the music stop and interrupt his wife's sacred dance, the king makes a shocking choice. He pulls out a blade, slices open his own thigh, extracts a living vein, and uses it to replace the broken string. This gruesome, beautiful act of bodily sacrifice is a revered legend in the Jain tradition, and the devotee bleeding on the temple floor is Ravana, the king that most of the world remembers only as a mythological demon. This portrait exists because of a historical Jain monk named Vimalasuri. When Vimalasuri looked at the popular versions of the Ramayana circulating in his time, he found details like sleeping giants and armies of literal monkeys impossible to reconcile with reality, so he stripped away the magical anomalies. By removing the monstrous elements of the story, he replaced mythological evil with something more complex, a highly capable, deeply flawed human being. Within this rational framework, Ravana's famous 10 heads receive a complete reinterpretation. They are not a physical mutation. They serve as a symbol of his towering intellect, representing his absolute mastery over 10 distinct disciplines of classical knowledge. He was the grandson of one of the revered Saptarishis, educated rigorously by his sage father. He was such a brilliant polymath that he is credited with writing the Ravana Samhita, an advanced astrological text actively studied by later generations. Looking at historical celestial instruments like this one, with its complex engraved rings, gives a sense of the sheer intellectual weight attributed to his character. Mandodari occupied a unique station in the court as one of the Panchakanya, 5 women revered for their piety, and she used that spiritual authority to challenge Ravana directly. Throughout the entire epic, she repeatedly confronted Ravana, urging him toward righteous action and begging him to return Sita to Rama. Ravana's downfall is driven by being surrounded by profound love and true righteousness, and he actively chose to look the other way. That choice reaches its agonizing peak during Sita's captivity. Here, the Jain tradition introduces its most surprising deviation. Despite his intense passion, Ravana makes a conscious decision not to force himself upon her. The constant presence of Mandodari's counsel, paired with the moral weight of Jain religious teachings, begins to erode his resolve. That specific delay tears him apart. A contemporary Jain monk described his spiritual condition with striking precision. Ravana knew he was committing a moral transgression, and the guilt made his soul suffer like an injured cockroach flutters in pain. Jain philosophy teaches that every soul faces an ongoing struggle with its own karma. Ravana was a fully conscious being, completely aware of his own wrongdoing, yet paralyzed by his worldly attachments. His death on the battlefield is mourned as the devastating collapse of a brilliant mind, finally crushed under the weight of its own unresolved moral contradictions. To understand the true scale of this tragedy, we have to zoom out into the vast cosmological framework of Jain time. This animated wheel represents those cosmic cycles. As the downward indicator tracks, the universe rotates through the Avasarpani, a phase of decline. But following this comes the Utsarpani, an ascending half-cycle of spiritual progress. In this universe, karma is never permanently fixed. Because his soul possesses full spiritual capacity, the Jain texts record an extraordinary prophecy for Ravana. He is destined to eventually break the cycle of rebirth and become one of the next 24 Tirthankaras, the highest state of spiritual liberation. The prophecy includes a final specific connection. When Ravana achieves this supreme enlightenment, the chief spiritual leader of his community, his Ganadhara, will be Sita herself. Against the backdrop of infinite time, the brutal conflict of their earthly lives shrinks. The abduction and the war become a temporary karmic entanglement between 2 souls who are ultimately destined to reunite as enlightened teacher and devoted disciple. This reimagining makes a radical claim about the nature of existence. Jain philosophy rejects the concept of a permanently lost or irredeemable soul. It is a deeply empathetic worldview, standing in contrast to stories that demand a simple victory where pure good eradicates pure evil. No matter how severe a person's moral failures might be, or how heavy their karmic burden grows in a single lifetime, their innate capacity for total liberation remains intact. Jain tradition looks past the villain of history and sees a fellow traveler, struggling through self-inflicted pain on a path that eventually leads to the same destination as every other soul.